Chapter 6. After we were again seated, one of our party turned to Emil and asked if all could acquire the art of healing. He said, "The power to heal can be obtained only as we learn to trace things out from their source. Supremacy over every discord can come only in the degree that we can understand that they do not come from God. The divinity that shapes your destinies is not a mighty person molding you as a potter molds his clay, but a mighty divine power within and all around you, and around and in all substance, which is yours to use as you will. If you do not realize this, you cannot have confidence in yourselves. The greatest cure for inharmony is the knowledge that it is not from God, and that God never did create it. The brain has the quality of receiving and recording the vibrations of any object that the eye conveys to it. The vibrations of the lights and shades and colors are all recorded. It also has the quality of reproducing these vibrations and projecting them out again, this time through the inner vision. Then we again see the picture the eye has conveyed. You are reproducing this in your camera every time you expose a sensitized plate. That plate receives and records the vibrations that the object you wish to photograph sends out. After the vibrations are received and recorded on the plate, you must fix the results on the plate if they are to become permanent, so that you can see them. It will be only a short time before you will find that the movements and colors of the objects that you photograph can be recorded and projected by first fixing and then returning or projecting the lights and colors at the same rate of vibration at which they were received and fixed. It is the same with thought and word and act. Each selective set of brain cells takes up and records its corresponding set of vibrations, and when these vibrations are repeated and projected, they can be reproduced just as they took place if the cells are held directly to their duty. There is also another set of selective brain cells that can receive, record, and fix vibrations of the thoughts, acts, motions, and pictures that other bodies or forms send out. These vibrations can be again reproduced and projected, and you can so arrange these cells that you can reproduce the words and motions of these bodies or objects, and even the thoughts of those that send them out. Through these cells you can assist others as well as yourself to control their thoughts. It is through these cells that accidents and calamities are brought about, such as wars, earthquakes, floods, fires, and all the trouble that mortal man is heir to. Someone either sees a thing happen or images it as happening. The corresponding vibration is fixed in the cells, sent out to be impressed on the corresponding cells of other brains, then again projected back until the thing is so fixed that it happens. All these things can be avoided if the thought that sustains them is immediately withdrawn and the vibrations are not allowed to be fixed upon those brain cells so that those particular vibrations cannot be again projected. It is through this set of cells that all calamities are foretold. There is still another set of the selective brain cells that receive, record, and fix the vibrations of the thoughts and activities of divine mind, wherein all the true vibrations are created and sent out. This divine mind, or God, pervades every substance, and it is always sending out divine and true vibrations. And if we hold these cells to their true office, we are able to receive and send out the same true and divine vibrations that we receive from divine mind. We do not have the divine mind, but we have the cells that receive and project the vibrations of the divine mind. There was a pause and deep silence. Then a picture appeared upon the wall of the room. It was still at first, but in a moment it became animated, and after the lapse of another moment the scene began to change. Scenes that could represent those enacted in any or all of the more prosperous business centers of the world came flooding in. While they were changing very rapidly, there was sufficient time for us to recognize and name many familiar places, and one in particular, a reproduction of the scenes enacted when we landed in Calcutta in December 1894. This was long before we had even heard of the cinema or motion picture. Yet these pictures depicted and brought out all the movements of the human form and other objects. These pictures continued to pour in at intervals of about 1 minute's duration for nearly an hour. While these pictures were passing, Emil said, "These pictures represent the conditions that exist in the world today. You will note the air of general peace and prosperity that prevails over a great portion of the earth. There is a reasonable amount of contentment. The people seem undisturbed and generally happy. But underneath, there is a seething cauldron of discord generated by man's own ignorant thinking. There is hate, intrigue, and discord among nations. Men are beginning to visualize great military establishments, the like of which were never known before on earth. While we are doing everything in our power to bring out the good, our combined efforts will not be sufficient to sway those who are determined to rule in their own might. If they are able to perfect and launch their diabolical plans, and this we fully expect they will do, for people and nations are sleeping just when they should be awake and thinking. Within a few years you will see enacted pictures like these." Then 10 or 12 war scenes came trooping by. They were scenes that we never dreamed could actually take place, and we gave them but little thought. Emil continued, "We are hoping almost against hope that these can be averted. Time will tell, and these conditions are what we are hoping will prevail." Then scenes of beauty and peace beyond all description came trooping past, and Emil said, "These are scenes which all of you will see enacted, but we wish you would, insofar as possible, put the second series of pictures out of your minds, as that will help us more than you think." After a short pause, one of our party asked what the words "Lord God" implied, and Emil continued, "The Lord God was used to designate the perfect being that the divine principle or God created to bring out his qualities here on earth. This being was created in the image and likeness of the divine principle and had access to and could use everything that the divine principle had. This being was given power and dominion over every condition that existed upon the earth. This being had all the potentialities of the divine principle and the power to bring them forth as long as he cooperated with the divine principle and developed the faculties that had been given him in the ideal way that the divine principle had planned or was holding in mind. This being was afterwards called Lord God, which meant expression in creative action or the law of God. This is the perfect being that the divine principle holds in mind for man to express. This is the divine and only man that the divine principle created. Man, or the spiritual side of his nature, has access to and can become this Lord God, or one man. This divine man afterwards became known as the Christ. He had dominion over heaven and earth and all things therein. Then the Lord God, using his power to create, did create other beings like unto himself. These beings were afterward called sons of the Lord God, and their creator was called Father, and the divine principle was called God. Here he paused for a moment and held out his hand, and almost immediately there was in it a large piece of plastic substance that resembled clay. This he placed on the table and began molding it into a form, which afterwards took on the image of a beautiful human figure about 6 inches in height. So deftly did he work that the image was finished in a very short time. After it was finished, he held it in both hands for a moment. Then he held it up and breathed upon it, and it became animated. He held it in his hands for a moment longer, then placed it on the table, where it moved about. It acted so much like a human being that we never asked a question, but stood with our mouths and eyes wide open and stared. Emil spoke, quoting, "And the Lord God created man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. Then sons of the Lord God created man from the dust of the ground, and they, with their creative ability, breathed the breath of life into the statue, and it became a living soul. The genius can do this with his pottery or handiwork. If he leaves the statue or picture as his hands form it, it is an image, and he has no responsibility. But if he goes on and uses his creative power to put life into it, his responsibility never ceases. He must keep watch of each of his creations, and they must be held in divine order. This is where man, in one way, lost contact with God. He made images like these, Then he did not withdraw the life which he, in his ardor, had endowed them with, and they wandered over the earth without purpose or aim. Whereas, had he withdrawn the life he had endowed them with, there would have been but the statue, and his responsibility would have ceased. Here the image stopped moving, and Emil continued, "You have seen the clay in the hands of the potter, but it is man, not God, that is manipulating the clay. Had he created it from God's pure substance, as he was created, it, like him, would have been a pure and true son. This will be much clearer to you after you have translated the first series of tablets. As it is late, I think you would like to retire." As soon as the last guest had departed, we prepared to retire, feeling that the last few days had been filled to overflowing.